Greetings everyone, what I'm about to explain in this video is how to set up mix minus for phone interviews on the ZOOM Livetrak L-8, and while at it, I'll compare its podcasting features to the fresh out of the oven Mackie ONYX8 and the Soundcraft Signature 12 MTK, just because they cost around the same and are all multi-track USB mixers. Let's get on with it! Disclaimer: my primary goal with this video series is to save you from digging into user manuals, reading countless blog posts, forums, and watching endless hours of YouTube videos trying to figure out which equipment is best suited for what. I don't actually have owned or have used all of these devices, but I have been reading all the user manuals, watched most of the useful YouTube tutorials about them, and digged into forums as well as checked their prices to find out which one is best suited for which podcasting scenario in terms of number of persons participating. It is however still possible that here and there I could be mistaken, so I encourage you to do your homework as well. I will however definitely help you narrow down the list of device choices quite a bit. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's get into it. To record a remote interview for your podcast, the single most important term that you'll need to familiarize yourself with is mix minus. As a quick reminder on what is a mix minus, when recording a phone interview, you are not actually speaking into your phone, but into a microphone. To lead all the voices into your recording device, you will need to combine your voice and your guest's voice, so you will apply a mixer, which is integrated into many recording devices nowadays, so you won't necessarily see a mixing board. But for the sake of understanding the mix minus, let's showcase it with a mixing board. Your voice goes into the mixer. The voice of your guest from the phone also goes into the mixer. What a mixer does is that it combines everything that goes into it and creates a single stereo track of them so that you can record and also monitor everything. However, your guest at the moment hears nothing, as again you are not talking into the phone but into the mic. So you need to route your voice back into the phone for the guest to hear you. The problem is that by default the mixer sends out, well, a mix of all the voices, which also includes the guest's voice, which in return creates an annoying feedback echoing into the guest's ears while talking. So you'll need to remove their voice from the mix that is sent back to them. In other words, what they will receive is the full mix minus their own voice, and that is mix minus. So why I consider the ZOOM Livetrak L-8 as such a capable device and one that's well suited for podcasting with remote guests. Let's take a closer look on its inputs and outputs. What you can see here is the top part of the ZOOM Livetrak L-8 with all its inputs and outputs. Okay, well, all but the USB input. I'm afraid that's on the bottom of the device. Yes, down there. You can see there the usual black XLR/line level combo inputs. There are 6 of them. Then there are 2 line level inputs, which make it a total of 8 inputs, hence the name L8. The cool thing, or shall we say one of the cool things about the L8, that there is a small 3.5mm jack input between inputs 7 and 8 in the middle. That's where you can plug in the mobile phone with a TRRS cable, which is by the way in the box, which is also super cool. But not only can you plug it in so that it can be channeled into a mixer as a sound source, more and more mixers start to be able to do that nowadays, but what it sets the ZOOM L-8 apart from them is that it also sends signals back to the phone and, you've guessed it, it takes the caller's voice away from what it sends back to them, so you get the mix minus feature built in. And it does that automatically, no need to wire or switch anything anywhere. Recording a phone interview is just plug and play. You'll never want to set up mix minus any other way once you've tried this. So far so good. But what if we want to call more than one remote guest? Pay attention to these 3 switches. They are called Mix A, Mix B and Mix C. They are there because the ZOOM L-8 has 4 headphone ports, one of which is meant for you to monitor your recording, but the other 3 can be configured as to your liking. You are free to select which channels are heard through these headphone ports individually. Let's stop here for a moment. 3 separate monitor mixes, along with the built-in mix minus for mobile phones, at this price point are simply breathtaking in terms of the flexibility it provides. You will need to grow your podcast quite a bit and invite many guests before you exhaust the Livetrak L-8's technical capabilities. So for setting up the mix minus, you will plug in your microphone into one of the XLR ports. You then plug in the phone that you are using to call your first remote guest into the dedicated phone TRRS input with the 3.5mm TRRS cable included in the box, which means that this guest will have the mix minus set up automatically. Push the select button twice to select the TRRS phone input as the active input source for channel 8. You'll see it selected as the little red dot lights up next to the phone icon. At the same time, just FYI, selecting the phone input on channel 8 will disable not only the line level input on channel 8, but also the one on channel 7. However, the USB input as well as the sound pads will still remain selectable on channel 7 undisturbed. Then you take a second phone, connect it to an ONYX8 adapter, and coming out from the ONYX8's amplifier output port with a 1/4-inch TS mono jack cable, plug it into one of the free XLR/line-in combo ports on the mixer. As with selecting the phone input, the simple line level inputs are gone. Make sure that you have switched the through/FX switch on the side of the ONYX8 to FX. This way the TS mono amplifier output will carry the same signal as the ONYX8's headphone port would, only in mono. See my ONYX8 video for further details. Switch on Mix A, otherwise the standard master mix will go through that output as well, and then route Mix A's headphone port back into the ONYX8's input port labeled with the small guitar icon. Now you only need to configure which channels should be heard on Mix A, so what is it that you want to send back through the ONYX8 adapter into the phone? That would be all but channel 6, where you've plugged in the ONYX8, marked with the blue circle. Let's have a quick look at the that simple 3-step process of how to create a custom monitor mix. First, press Mixer, then press Mix A, then find the channel where you have plugged in your ONYX8 and pull down the fader of that channel to 0. If you want to return to mixing the master, you'll just select it while you are still in the mixer mode. To start recording, you'll need to hit Recorder, arm and unmute all the tracks that you want to record as well as the master track. Then, and this is a little awkward, press Recorder to initiate recording standby, and I'm quoting from the user guide, because it will not start recording just yet. It will just put it in recording standby, and finally press the play button to actually start recording. But once you've done that, now you are recording every channel on a separate track on the SD card. As the ZOOM Livetrak L-8 also sends out all its channels separately via USB into your recording app, you can set at the same time in your recording app which channel should be recorded to which track, and then when you start recording it will send them out parallel to recording into the SD card, which is awesome. Should your recording app crash, you always have a backup right away, and you are on your way. As I have mentioned before, you have by far not exhausted the L8's capabilities in terms of adding more remote guests just yet. What's awesome is that you can repeat this 2 more times, by which you can set up as many as 4 remote guests with a proper mix minus. 1 through the TRRS port, and 3 more through the custom monitor mixes, all recorded on separate channels and parallel saved to an internal SD card for backup. Although by setting up 4 remote guests this way, you will have only 3 XLR ports left for people in the room, which is still a lot. It's 7 people participating on the show. Honestly speaking, this is one of the most versatile and capable devices out there, and if you are ready to spend around €400 and have just a little interest in also recording music aside from podcasting, I wouldn't hesitate for a second going for it. It's simply amazing. The only thing that I actually miss from it is the built-in USB mix minus, while you can kind of sort of set it up if you are using the master mix for the remote guest and remove their voice from there and the monitor mix use for yourself. But in this case you lose the TRRS phone mix minus setup, as it always works from the master mix. But even without that, it beats a lot of other devices for podcasting, especially in this price to value ratio. Its most recent direct competitor in terms of price point at least is the freshly announced Mackie ONYX8. However, the ZOOM Livetrak L-8 beats it hands down when it comes to podcasting. First of all, it has more mic inputs, 6 versus 4, and all of them are combo jacks, while you only get 2 of the combo jacks with the Mackie. Then you can create 3 distinct monitor mixes, while on the Mackie you can sort of create only 2. There is 1 dedicated monitor send, and you can use the FX send port to create another mix minus. The SD card recording is multi-track on the ZOOM 8, while the Mackie only records a stereo mix. The L8 has faders, each with a dedicated volume meter. The Mackie has knobs and only a single master volume meter. The L8 has sound pads for playing in jingles, sound effects, and pre-recorded stuff. The Mackie does not have these. And the only area, based on specs at least, where the Mackie gets ahead is that it has Bluetooth input, but only input, so it does not have a complete podcast-oriented Bluetooth integration that can also send audio back to the phone with a mix minus. The other option at this price point would be Soundcraft's signature series 12 MTK, MTK standing for multitrack, which actually has 3 aux sends, which do the same thing as the Zoom's monitor mixes, and on top of all this you can create a USB mix minus routing with it, with its unique group send feature, using which you can tweak the master output to make it possible. I'll have a separate video about it if there's interest for it, let me know in the comments. At the same time, it lacks the built-in mix minus for phones, which, as I've said, is the most convenient thing ever. If you have ever tried it to record a phone interview that way, you'll never want to set it up any other way. And speaking of convenience, you really need to know what you are doing when setting up this mixer, while the ZOOM L8 is smaller, lighter, and much easier to use. Last but not least, the ZOOM L8 has a freaking on-off switch, which should be really obvious at this level of equipment, and I would go as far as calling it
grotesque and incomprehensible.
To me, the Soundcraft Signature 12 MTK lacks this. It doesn't have an on-off switch. Overall, for practically the same price, for podcasting, out of these 3 mixers, I would recommend the ZOOM Livetrak L-8 7 days a week and twice on Sunday. It's not a perfect mixer either, however, and for the complete overview on what devices I recommend for which podcasting scenario, look forward to the Big Podcast Equipment Guide, which will be released on this channel soon. With that, thanks for watching. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want to learn what devices you will need to record a podcast, if you want to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or up to 10 participants, including up to 4 remote guests over the phone or Skype, and learn how to set up phone interviews on various devices with Mix Minus. Take care.